Oh, good day, tubes. Bruce here. Well, if you guys remember, I did a 6-part series back in the winter, and it was called Tools That Don't Need Fuel. And every time I went to work on an axe handle or hold something that was going to get marked by the vise, I had to do this. See that vise there? You might even remember these two little green blocks. So you put this in here like this, right? And then I would put the axe handle in here and then close the vise. It was really quite awkward and a pain in the neck, you could say. And all the while, I have had one of these. Now, it's a long story. It's been in the family for years. And because I haven't done a lot of woodworking lately, I haven't installed it. But I am going to install this now. And I'm going to put a 1/2-inch oak plywood as the jaws instead of something with teeth like a metal working vise has. So this is called a Woodworkers Vise or flush vise. There's all kinds of names for them. And and I've learned a couple of things. One, I do have the two vices. I have one here and I have one over there, right there. And of the two, I use this one the most. And I found out why. I never really thought about it until I read about it. Is that I'm left-handed. So naturally I approach a vise. I can use either that one over there or this one here. I approach this one, I clamp it up, and I go. That's because my working side of my body is on the right side of the bench. So on my wooden bench, I am going to install my carpenter's vise, my small carpenter's vise, right there. Like that. Now it's going to be 1/8 of an inch lower than the bench top, and it's going to recess into that square hole there. And the only other dilemma is, do I mount the vise with the edge, how can I put this, with the edge protruding like that, right? You see that right there on that one? Or do I, if I mount the vise flush to the bench like that, when I add my 1/2-inch plywood, it'll still be sticking out. So then you have to mount it 1 inch in. But then I have a problem where this is actually not quite flush. My temporary movable bench is not quite flush. So after all, it's not a question of how long it takes or if I'm in a rush or anything, but I am going to mount this vise first, just with the 1/4 inch lip hanging out like that, with 2 pieces of oak plywood, one mounted here and one mounted here. And I'm going to extend the oak plywood about 2 inches on either side. And if the oak plywood doesn't work, we will use a hardwood of some sort, but that's really easy to change. So I guess the first thing I'm going to try and do is I'm going to just cut this square here. Now it's the thickness of this 3/4 plus a 2x4. Originally I was going to cut up, over and down, but I thought we'd maintain some more bench integrity if we just cut this hole here. And you can see already that this line here is going to be the edge of the vise, and then I've got 1/8 of an inch gap here so that the vise will be 1/8 of an inch down from the top. So my weapon of choice is going to be my new flush cut saw. which you saw in my kerf installation video. So I just have to find the right blades and everything, and we'll come back. Okay, the furnace is running because it was only 5 degrees Celsius, which is about 40 in here for my American friends. So I'm just going to start cutting on this hole here. We'll see how it goes. Cool. Alright. Now I wonder if I'm going to have the room to go through the rest of the 2x4. Let's give it a go. Alright. I know the furnace is probably driving you nuts because it's driving me nuts. I'm going to try and finish this off with the dreaded of all dreaded jigsaws. Most people have one of these and everyone hates them. It should come out. Yep. Ouch. That's pretty cool. Now we just got to square up the corners going the other way, right? Alright guys, so from now on I'm going to just take the vise apart and deal with the base. I think. There we go. Hey. So once I get my depth reset underneath here, I'm going to put this over top like this. Drill my 4 1/4-inch holes, right? Countersink them a little bit, put my bolts in, and then put the nuts in from underneath. I'm just going to measure underneath to see how much shim I need. Be right back. Okay guys, now I'm drilling the 4 holes from up top. It should be the same when I turn the vise 180 degrees. Well, I'm just finishing up the installation of my vise. I know it doesn't look like much right now. This is the other side, right? It screws in like that. And my next step is to permanently mount the base. So these aren't going to be the final bolts that hold it in, but these are definitely going to be my guides. Doesn't really matter which ones I use. So now the next thing I want to do is make sure that I don't have it, well, it won't be above the bench, but I want to make sure that I'm about 1/8 of an inch below. So that's pretty close. Those come pretty close, don't they? I want to go all the way through with that. I'm going to have to drill just a slightly bigger hole. I have really enjoyed this project, and it's going to be nice when I'm done. So I don't have to put my vises in the other, or my axes, excuse me, in the other. Okay, now I'm ready to countersink for my washers, and I don't know if my drill bit's going to be big enough, guys. This might do it. That's exactly right. Okay. Good. Alright guys, I'm just lining up the 4 bolts from up top here to the bolts underneath, and the first 2 are going to be the toughest. Now hopefully we can just tighten this up with the drill. Okay tubes, now I'm starting to build out the shims for the vise, and the first 2 are going to go here and here, and then the second one will go completely across. So I'm just going to put these on 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that was the tough part guys, because this shimming was all a different thickness. But everything's really good now. I'm going to take the vise apart. And we're going to cut this one here. Okay, so that's exactly 1 1/4 by, it should be 1 1/4 by 6 1/4 if I'm not mistaken. 6 1/4 by 1 1/4. Okay, so I cut this 6 1/4. I don't know if I explained this board that I'm using. I went to the lumber store, not a big box store, and the guy, I said I want something really hard. Doesn't have to be a hard wood though, and he suggested that I buy this hard board, and then I bought, to make it stronger, I bought a 1/4 inch and an 1/8 inch and laminated it together with contact cement. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So anyway, that's a good fit there. Keep in mind there's one going over top of this, right? So now I just have to cut this off at 1 1/4. Alright, well now I'm just setting the 3 holes with a countersink in each piece. And this so that's great.